Yes, Bharat and Vigneshwari again join. Good morning, students. Welcome to the OOID session. Yesterday, I have started the second unit. In that, we saw in detail what is a class diagram, what are the elements in the class diagram, how the association is mentioned. Now, I'm going to continue with the association, and then we are going to touch the second phase of the unified process elaboration. Okay. Before that, I want to tell in the yesterday quiz, most of you attended well. Some of you have to put more efforts to score more marks. Among you, A. Ashwin, Dharanishri, P.S. Bhavana, Nitya Lakshmi, and Sanjay Charan scored 100 out of 100. Very good. Others also try to score maximum marks in the next quiz. Put your efforts. Yes. If you listen the classes carefully, it will be easy to attend the quiz also. Okay, coming back to this one, these are the topics to be covered in today's class: generalization, realization, dependency, constraint, rules and nodes, and then elaboration. Yesterday we saw the two important forms of association: aggregation and composition. Let's touch with that one and then we move on to the next topic. Aggregation is a loose kind of relationship. Yes, it is mentioned as what has a relationship, but composition means what? It's a strong association. We can call it as is the relationship. Yes, I have told an example. Without music system, without CD system, also a car can work, but without steering or without brake, it can't work. So, a music system is a part of a car has music system. Yes, the music is part, car is the whole. By removing the part also, the whole can exist. That is called as aggregation. But in composition, if I remove that part, the whole can't function. Yes, so that is called as what? Composition. If I remove the steering or brake, the car can't work, though it is a part of the car. So if I remove it, the entire system, that is both the parent class and the child class will not exist. So that is called as composition. I have mentioned these differences. With respect to the basic terms, it's a way to wrap simple objects into a single unit. But it differs from ordinary composition in that it does not imply ownership. There is no ownership in aggregation, but there is ownership in the composition part. Okay. Here in composition, parent owns the child entity, as told. Car has brake. Okay. Car, that is with brake only the car will function. But in aggregation, parent has a relationship. Here it is a relationship. In composition. In aggregation, we have has a relationship. Okay. With respect to notation, I have mentioned composition as a filled diamond, aggregation to be mentioned as empty diamond, where you have to fill it near the superclass. Okay, near the superclass, you have to mention that one. Both the filled diamond for composition because it is strong. You can take it in that way. A filled diamond it denotes the composition. Empty diamond denotes the aggregation. With respect to life cycle, the child does not have its own life cycle. But aggregation, the child can have their own lifetime. It may or may not exist in aggregation. Okay. When compared to aggregation, composition is a strong association. Okay, so these are the differences between composition and aggregation. Very, very important question. In interview, in university question, everything this kind will be asked. If you are aware of OOAD, they will ask surely this question. Differentiate aggregation and composition like that. Yes. So we move on to another kind of relationship, generalization. Is realization. So as told earlier, you have to remember the notations for all these terms. How an aggregation is denoted, how composition is denoted, how generalization, all are implemented in which diagram? We are seeing class diagram. Yes. So now this generalization is denoted by arrowed line, a line with arrow mark. Yes. It is a kind of relationship, is a kind of relationship. That means any subclass can be substitutable as for the superclass. Yes, we can make use of subclass for implementing the superclass. Here the superclass is generalized and the subclass is specialized. Now look at this example. I have mentioned a class name called what? Shape. Shape is the superclass. I can have a shape of circle. I can have a shape of a rectangle. I can have a shape of square. In particular, I am mentioning square or rectangle or anything. Okay, a circle, polygon, like that. So that is the specialization. So that specialized class is your subclass. The generalized class is your superclass. Okay, you can remember the OOPS concept, polymorphism. Yes, just apply that one. We are going to apply the same thing only, polymorphism. You might write a program also for finding the area of a particular shape. That area can be what? Either area of circle, area of triangle, area of rectangle. Got it? Just think of it. Same thing only we are using in the class diagram also. But here in superclass, I have mentioned one term in braces, abstract. This shape is an abstract class. Abstract class means what? Any idea? You studied in OOPS concept. You can put it in chat also. What is an abstract class? A class with dash. A class with any quick answers in chat. Come on. Nobody knows that abstract class? Okay, a class without object or a class with no object, that is called as abstract class. But we are using those attributes. You can ask, without object, how can we have a class? Without object also, we can make use of the class just by taking the attributes, and we can use it in some other class. Those classes are called as abstract class. This abstract class, you have to mention it in italics. You have to mention the name of the class in italics. That is one of the important thing you have to note. Okay. So this representation, this triangled arrow mark denotes the generalization. A very common example. Any doctor, any MBBS doctor can be treated as a general doctor. Yes. But after MBBS, they are doing some specialization. They may do some specialization, cardiology or ENT, like that. Okay. Gynecologist, like that. So those are the specialization. But in general, we are calling them as what? Doctor. But we can make them particular by using the specialization concept. Same thing we are applying in the OOAD also. So here shape as the abstract class or the super class. In that it can be what? Just I mentioned only one. You can also write, sorry. You can also one more draw one more triangle arrow mark, and you can make square. Then another one rectangle, like that. We can use this in the class diagram. So here a subclass, it inherits attributes, everything from whom? From the superclass. Normal inheritance operation only, but you have to mention the triangle arrow mark in the base class or the parent class. Here we can't say it as base class or parent class. Instead, we are mentioning it as what? Superclass. Parent class is the superclass. Your child class is the subclass. So near that superclass, you have to mention that symbol for generalization. Yes, so it inherits all the subclass. Obviously, it inherits attributes from the superclass. In addition to that, it can have its own attributes also. Normal inheritance operation only. A student can have his own characteristics. Okay, how he is studying, what are the extracurricular activities, what are the habits, hobbies, etc. But apart from that, he is inheriting some habits from his mother or father. Like that only, here a subclass can have its own attributes also. And it may also override some inherited operations from the superclass. But here, one of the drawback is here generalization, we can't use it to model the interface implementation or interface to implement the interface, how an interface is used in a programming. We can design that also using the class diagram. In that situation, we can't use generalization because you have to be particular. What kind of interface you are using, like that. Okay. So these are the things with respect to generalization. This is the symbol. Yes, noted. A diamond symbol we saw for what? Aggregation and composition. A normal line denotes what? Bidirectional association. A normal line without any arrow mark. It denotes an association. An arrowed line denotes unified association. Yes. So now we move on to another thing called as what? Realization. To overcome this drawback, I said generalization is not used to model the interface implementation. Everything we are seeing for using, that is everything we are seeing for modeling only. How we are modeling the program, how we are modeling the interface, how we are modeling the classes, objects and all. Okay. Especially for interface implementation, we are using another relationship called as realization. Yes. Here one class can implement a behavior which is specified by another class. It means what? Either an interface or a protocol. I can make use of interface. Yes, that can be used by another class also. That interface is implemented by some other class. That interface can be used by some other class. That is denoted as realization. Look at the diagram. Look at that symbol also. Dotted line with arrow mark. Okay, that denotes the realization. In previous thing, we see what? A normal dashed line with a triangle symbol. This is the difference between generalization and realization. So here I am using an interface called what? List. Which class implement this list? A linked list. So here, left side one. We are using three classes: linked list, list and array list. List can be used as an interface. Which class implements this behavior? The linked list implement this list. It can be used by whom? It can be used by some other class. Array list or stack, queue, anything. Okay. So this is called as realization. An interface can be realized by many classes. Similarly, a class may realize many interfaces. Here I have used only one interface. I can use another interface, stack or some other thing, wave, like that. So two things you have to remember. One single interface can be realized by many classes, and one class may realize many interfaces. So that is denoted as realization. In a practical example, we can see a student can be involved in many club activities. We have ORC club, UA club, women club, NSS, so many clubs are there, language club, like that. One student can be involved in what? Many clubs. Similarly, how can I denote in some other way this third point? A club can have many students. Got it? Understood the difference? Again, I repeat. A student can be involved in many clubs. Similarly, a club can have many number of students. These things are represented using realization. Okay. This is a simple example for generally. I mentioned the doctor. An MBBS doctor, he can be a specialist, ENT specialist or anything. Like that, here I have mentioned some other example, vehicle. Left side, that is, we can see the entire diagram first. We are mentioning vehicle as a class. In general, I have mentioned vehicle. Okay, that vehicle can be what? Operated in land, water or air. We can split it like this. Similarly, a land vehicle can be what? It can be either a car, bus, van, auto, anything. Similarly, under water vehicle, we can have ship, boat. Under air, we have what? Aeroplane, helicopter. So from vehicle, I am specifically giving one by one, level by level. That vehicle, it is specialized to water. That water vehicle, it is specifically given as what? Boat. So that is called as specification or specialization. Generally, we denote it as specialization. Yes, in the right side, I have mentioned from general to specific. From vehicle to helicopter, I have moved. The left side, look at the diagram. A generalization, it moves from car to vehicle. Car is a particular one. It's a kind of what? Land vehicle. In general, we call it as what? Vehicles. So, according to the application or according to the domain, you can use either generalization or specialization. Okay. Like this, we can mention. So, we can take an example. Student. A student, it's an example for what? Generalization. That student can be divided into what? CSE student, mechanical student, ECE, EEE student. Yes, that CSE student in particular, he can be what? second CSE student, third year student, or final year student. Like that, you are going specifically. All these things we are denoting using those symbols. An arrowed line, it denotes generalization. The specialization, it is denoted by same thing only, but you have to mention it in the filled arrow mark. That is the specialization. Realization, dotted line with arrow mark. I mean with the triangle. A triangled arrow mark using dotted line. It specifies the realization. Okay. Yes. Then we move on to dependent. So far we have seen so many kinds of association. Generalization, realization, specialization. Specialization, it's a part under the generalization only. Okay, but while writing theory, you can mention separately with the example for each representation. Then yesterday we saw aggregation, composition. All are kinds of relationship in class diagram. How we are associating the classes. Okay. Now we are going to see dependency. The name itself, we are getting some idea whether a class depending on other class or not. It is one of the weaker form of relationship. Just look at the diagram, a dotted line with normal arrow mark, not triangled arrow. You may think it easy, but you have to remember all these simple notations carefully. Okay. A triangle, I mean a dotted line, a dashed line, a dotted line with arrow mark, dotted line with the triangled arrow. You have to carefully remember. Okay. So this is a dotted line with a normal arrow mark. It denotes what? Dependency. But it is a weaker form of relationship. Yes, when compared to other kind of relation, normally we use composition, generalization like that. It denotes the strong form of relationship, the composition and all. So dependency means one class depending on other because it uses some features. It may use some attributes. It may use some operation at some point of time. In that cases, you have to make use of the dependency. Here, it's a relationship that shows that an element or a set of elements, it require other model elements. Why they need other elements? Either for implementation or for specification or for specifying something. Okay, but it is different from association. Don't confuse dependency with association. Because in association, an attribute of a dependent class will be used as an instance of the independent class. I didn't mention in the slide, look at it carefully. So a dependency is different from association. Why means association? In association, the attribute of the dependent class is an instance of an independent class. But here, you are using dependency, not compulsory. It's an optional one only. If I need, I can make use. But association is a mandatory one. Okay. In the example I have mentioned, a server depending on the database connection manager. A server use, I have mentioned one term in the double arrowed symbol. That means a server can use the database connection manager. But it is not meaning that server always uses database connection manager. Sometimes you can use some rough application in that you may not need the database at all. In that situation, it does not depend on that particular class. So like that, you have to identify a particular class. If it is depending on other class means you have to mention it specifically in the class diagram. Yes, got it? And the last one is the constraint rules and notes. Constraint rules means you can specify some rules in the attributes component. In a class diagram, we have three compartments. Yes, class name, and the second one is what? Attribute name, and the third is the operations or methods. We saw an example, a simple example, student as the class. Then in the student, what are the attributes? Student roll number, name, marks, age, department, everything we can give. Then in the attribute, in the operations or the methods, we can find the marks, find CGPA, find the extracurricular values, like that. I can get some functions using those attributes. In those attributes, if I am mentioning some value, so I am giving the age as one of the attribute. Your age should be what? Between 17 to 19. Like that, you have to make it specific. You have to give the condition 17 to 20. Like that, for some attributes, we can give some constraints. Constraints means what? Conditions. They give some meaning. They annotate among other things. Where they are annotating in the association or in the attributes or in the operations or classes. I can annotate. I can give some specific meaning. Annotating means making specific, giving in particular, giving some meaning in particular. So I can annotate some other things using the constraints, where I can use the constraints either in the association or in the attributes or in the operations. In this example, we have seen this one, constraint. In the attribute, I have defined a class called what? Customer. What is the attribute here? ID, customer ID. Of type what? Long, long int. I have mentioned the long int data type. In particular, what constraint I have given? The value should be greater than 0. Yes. The customer ID value should not be 0. You can't give a 0 value or null value to the customer ID. So this is called as constraint. Now look at the second one. Total less than $50. Here you are using two classes, customer class and order class. Assume that a customer making some order for a product. So we are using multiplicity also. Here one customer can order what? Many number of orders. Star denotes what? Many. In this association line itself, I have mentioned the constraint. What constraint? The total should be less than $50. Though you can't order more number of products. Though you are ordering more number of products, you have to order in such a way that the total should be what? The total cost must be less than $50. Yes, you have to give the constraints in curly braces. That is one of the terms to be followed, syntax to be followed. Yes, so this is the use of constraint. Now look at the last one, just a dotted line. Here we are using two class only. Don't think that this is a class, just it is a note symbol. Okay, it's a dog-eared note symbol, dog-eared horse. Just we are having we are not having a normal rectangle. In the top right, it is slightly tilted. So this is the representation for the node. In programming, we are using command line. Yes, in C programming, C++, Java, in any program, it's advisable to use command lines for easy understanding for the user. Same thing in OOAD. In design part, we are using what? Note symbol. Yes, a dog-eared rectangle. That is that denotes the note symbol. Here I have used the class called order. That order may be cancelled. Just I want to note it to the user. I want to denote it to the user. So I mentioned it as a note symbol. A note symbol is always given using a normal dotted line, not with arrow. A dotted line with arrow mark denotes what? This one. Triangle arrow mark denotes realization. Don't get confused with all these notations. Yes. So we can give notes for any normal class also. I'm using a class called student. Yes. And this is a student. This is third year student. I can give one note in a particular box, in a particular rectangle. I can give it as this is third year student, or this denotes CSE student. I can connect that box with the student class. Yes. So these are the things with respect to class. Okay, so far we are seeing all the important elements with respect to class. What is a class diagram? Is it static diagram or dynamic diagram? I need quick answer in chat. Is the class diagram static or dynamic? Students, put it in chat. Yes, Kaushika answers static. Ujwala answers static. Good. So a class diagram is a static diagram, otherwise called as what? Structural diagram. Again, I repeat, there are 4. Yes, I am getting many correct answers. Good. There are 4 static diagrams in UML. Class diagram, object diagram, component diagram, and deployment diagram. Those are static, otherwise called as what? Structural diagram. What are the other diagrams? They can be called as what? Behavioral diagram or dynamic diagrams. Yes. So they are what? Use case diagram, sequence diagram, collaboration diagram, state chart diagram, and activity diagram. All are behavioral diagrams. Okay. So far we have seen all the notations with respect to class diagram. Okay. Then we move on to the next one. We will see one interesting video, how a software process works. It's a long video. We will see it at the end of the class. How the phases are working, what is the role of software architect and all. We'll see it in another few minutes. We move on to the next topic in your second unit. The first topic, class diagram, we have seen. Okay, what are the elements in class diagram? Because in this syllabus, the portions are splitted here and there, especially in the second unit. Association is given at the later part, aggregation and composition are given at the second part of your second unit. But no need to go after seeing all these things. Once we see the class diagram means we can relate all the components or all the parts, all the relationships related to class diagram. So only I have finished all those things earlier. Okay. Now we move on to elaboration. Where you have seen in the first unit, you have seen under the phases. There is a process called what? Unified process. It is an incremental software development process. We are making more and more number of iterations in the same module itself. Why? To rectify the errors. Instead of recovering the error at the end, we can make repeated iterations. Why we are going for many iterations? In the first iteration itself, we can't get a good result. If I am doing the same thing again with some more feature added means I can get good result. Yes, we are giving assignments, we are giving internal, we are conducting internal assessments and all. These can be considered as what? Iterations to improve your performance. Yes, same thing only applicable in software development, in any software projects. So how this phase works? What is the first phase in your unified process? Inception phase. There are 4 phases. Again, I am telling inception phase, elaboration, construction, and the transition. What the inception phase will do? It will establish the scope of the project. Why we are using the project? Yes, what is the project scope? What are the conditions, boundary conditions that we have to give for doing a project? Yes, what are the justifications we can make? So those are all dealt in the what? Inception phase. For this, we are using what? Use case diagram. Because in the using that use case diagram only, we are identifying the actors initially. For all the actors involved in the particular project or particular domain. So how we are going to make use of those actors? What are the use cases that are related to the actors? With that, we are establishing the scope of the project. All those were dealt in what? Inception phase. Incepting means what? Observing, getting something. Yes. Based after the inception phase, what we are going to see? We are going to see about the elaboration phase. How we are going to make the initial iterations. Because the third one only is the construction, actual implementation. But between that inception and the construction, we are having the second phase, what? Elaboration. Elaboration is nothing but it is a series of iterations where we are going to discover the major requirements. Yes, we are going to discover major requirements and also we are going to mitigate the major risk. Mitigating means what? Reducing, decreasing, lessening. How can we reduce the risk? We are not at all into the implementation part. Yes, after getting the requirements, after making the planning and all, anything students? Any doubts? Okay. After getting the functional, non-functional requirements and all, at this stage itself, there is some possibility to reduce the risk before getting into the implementation itself. These things are dealt in the elaboration phase. So that is the second point I have mentioned. The major risk can be mitigated or retired means what? Or it can be pushed off. It can be eliminated. Mitigating means reducing, lessening. And the third one is the core architectural elements are implemented. That is the important, very, very important feature of elaboration. How you are going to implement, how you are going to design the core architecture for the entire project. That is dealt in the elaboration phase. The fourth one is it clarifies most of the requirements because we don't know why this requirement is given in the specification in the SRS. Normally, before starting a process, you will be asked to write the SRS, software requirement specification. This elaboration phase will clarify most of the requirements. If you are asked to write the requirements, you may write some 10 to 12 requirements. But during the elaboration phase, they will analyze all the requirements, whether those 12 requirements are needed or we can reduce the requirements also. All these things will be clarified in the elaboration phase. The last one is it tackles high risk issues. Yes, it will tackle the high level risk. There are two levels, high level and low level risk. Okay, so it will tackle this elaboration phase will tackle the high level risk. And this high level risk are called as business values in the unified process. Okay, it's not united process, it is unified process. These risks can be called as what? Business values, because business values play the major role in unified process. Why we are using this unified process? To make our software to run efficiently, to develop a software process efficiently in a quick time. So only we are using the unified process. We are having so many disadvantages in waterfall model, spiral model and all. So we are going with the unified process. It's an agile methodology. Though we are getting quick results, but we can do many iterations also. We can reduce the risk then and there. That is the agile process. Yes. So this is the introduction about the elaboration phase. Why we are going for elaboration? The major requirements are discovered and it can be stabilized also. We can finalize the requirements. That first and fourth point you can combine it. And it also clarifies most of the requirements. Based on this, these are the major objectives. Just I have mentioned in detail in this slide. These are the major objectives of the elaboration phase. Yes, first it will build the core architecture because software architects, that role you may know that position, designation. There is an important role apart from a developer, tester and all. An architect plays a major role in all software companies, especially software architect. Okay, he only is mainly responsible for designing the architecture or building the core architecture for the project, because he has to know everything, every look and corner he has to check and he has to build the architecture. Yes, that is the objective of elaboration phase. And the second one is resolving the high risk elements. In the business values, we have high risk and low risk. The low risk elements can be dealt in the construction phase itself, no problem at all. There won't be serious impact. But any high level risk, it has to be dealt, it has to be considered in the second phase itself. And the third objective is define most requirements, both functional and non-functional requirements, all are defined in the elaboration phase in a clear way. And the fourth one is it estimate the overall schedule. In this phase only we are giving the overall schedule of the project and the resources that are to be utilized for the project. Yes, these are the major objectives of elaboration phase. A part of it we will see it in the video. How the functional requirements, how non-functional requirements are working and all. Okay. Normally, an elaboration phase consists of 2 to 4 iterations. I told it is the initial series of iterations. Elaboration is nothing but it has set of iteration. Normally, it contains 2 to 4 iterations. But each iteration, it will take what? Minimum to maximum 6 weeks. Unless otherwise, the team size is massive. If the team size is too large, means what? Many people will be involved. We can finish that iteration before the scheduled weeks itself. Okay, normally each iteration it will take 2 to 6 weeks of time for one iteration. Okay, so now in general, an elaboration phase contains 2 to 4 iterations, and each iteration is time boxed. You have to remember this term. These are all some technical terms in software companies. Time boxing. Time boxing means fixing the limit, not for the project, fixing the limit for each phase, each iteration. Yes, so that is called as time box. Its end date will be fixed. The end date is not for the project or the module, for each iteration, as told. Because each iteration will take what? 2 to 6 weeks. I can fix the time box. I can make time boxing as 3 weeks. In that 3 weeks, I have to finish the iteration. Yes, then you have to move on to the second iteration. Second iteration may take 2 to 3 weeks. In those period only, the risk values will be reduced. Okay, a very important phase, this elaboration phase. These are the key ideas and the best practices with respect to what? Elaboration phase. We can do short time boxed risk driven iteration. In the first point itself, there are so many points covered. We can do time boxing. The time boxing can be what? Short and also risk driven. That means it should handle the risk. How we can do? We can start the programming early. These are the key ideas. How to achieve how to implement this elaboration phase. Okay, we can start the programming early and we can design, implement and test the architecture. I'm not at all going to implement the project. I'm going to design, implement and test the architecture. And we can test early and also often realistically. We can do this testing early. And we adapt these conditions based on the feedback from the test or from the developers. Yes. Then finally we can write the use cases and other requirements in details. How means by conducting some workshops among the team members, among the project team members, they can conduct some workshop. Because in that workshop they will get more idea from all the programmers. From that they will analyze the requirements, which requirements will be most suitable, they can get it. Okay, this is the procedure followed in all software companies. This is a way of handling a project. Yes, these things we will see in the next class. This artifacts. Artifacts means what? Core elements. Normal artifacts na some in general. Some stone tools, some pottery vessels we are making out of clay, sand and also metal objects. Those are called as artifacts. தமிழ்ல சொல்லணும்னா கலை பொருள்னு சொல்லுவோம்ல artifacts. ப்ரோக்ராமிங்லயே ஆர்டிஃபேக்ட்ஸ் வேணும். கலைப்பொருள்னா எதெல்லாம் ரொம்ப நுணுக்கமா தேவையோ அது எல்லாத்தையும் we have to concentrate more. Those are called as artifacts. Objects னு சொல்லலாம் or elements, entities. Yes, we will see these are the important artifacts. We will see all these artifacts in the next class. Yes, now I will show the video how a software product works. How a software project. It's a video, but I will stop at some stage, then we'll resume the video in the next class. Yes?
In 1996, 31% of U.S. development projects failed entirely. 53% were over budget, schedule, or missing functionality, and only 16% met initial expectations. The problem was in the way IT projects were planned. In the 1990s, software development usually looked like this. First, the team of user representatives gathered requirements, development was scheduled and budgeted, then thousands of pages of documentation was handed off to a tech team to begin design and development. Eventually, the system was integrated into existing processes and tested. This was called the waterfall model, as steps were discrete and strictly followed each other. Today, the drawbacks of this approach seem obvious. Planning and documentation could take months. But what if you've made a mistake and the software solves non-existent problems? This would then be revealed only at the end of the cycle, and estimating new features that need deep research was essentially guesswork. An additional headache became evident in enterprises and complex projects. How to translate business requirements to technicians? Project managers and analysts that worked on analysis stages spoke a language completely different from the one engineers spoke. Programmers make solving tech puzzles, not business problems. And this made the gap between planning and coding even deeper. There was a need for someone who would take the technology leadership, have a high-level view on the problem, and suggest a solution expressed in a language accessible to technicians. In 1999, engineers from Rational Software, led by Philippe Cruchen, suggested building software in short iterations, reevaluating assumptions and results at the end of each development phase. This technique was called the Rational Unified Process, and this partly solved the first problem related to long planning and a feedback cycle. However, today, most development teams use other iterative and agile methods like Scrum, Lean, and Kanban. But Rational, by bridging the gaps between requirements and technology, helped address the second problem, communication difference. Later, this practice was dubbed solution architecture, and the role of the person leading it, solution architect. The term architecture was borrowed from the construction industry to highlight the complexity of problems. These were enterprise systems, after all. The term also depicts a vantage point. Architects oversee the big picture without diving into low-level technical details. Today, we know three main roles related to architecture: enterprise, solution, and software architects. First, there were enterprise architects and software.
Yes, hope you all saw that video. We will continue that video in the next class. Yes. So there are three major roles: software architect, enterprise architect, and solution architect. I will play this video in the next class also after teaching few concepts. As we are running out of time, I will stop with this particular video. Okay. Any doubts? Do you all watch that video?